Welcome to The Explainer. We're jumping right into a deeply moving story today, pulled straight from the source text of The Compass of the Northern Star. We're going to trace the journey of an aging lobster fisherman named Tom and take a close look at the fading fishing fleets up there on the rugged Maine coastline. It's a really fascinating look at legacy, generational knowledge, and ultimately the sea's quiet final rhythm. It's literally a masterclass in how age-old traditions transition in our fast-paced modern world. Okay, let's dive into this. The source starts us off with Tom, our seasoned fisherman, just standing right on the edge of the water. He points out to these totally empty docks, places where his old buddies used to tie up all the time, and he just whispers, "The harbor is quieter now." It's such a simple yet heavy statement, right? It sets the stage for everything we're about to unpack. He isn't just talking about the literal lack of noise, he's talking about the fading heartbeat of an entire way of life. So, to truly grasp Tom's perspective, we need to look at his environment. Section 1, the changing harbor. I really want you to vividly picture this physical transformation in your mind's eye. Imagine this area back in the day. It was absolutely packed. We're talking dozens and dozens of wooden lobster boats jostling for space. It was this thriving, loud ecosystem of industry and camaraderie. But contrast that with today. You look out and there's only a handful of those boats left. The industry has shifted so dramatically, leaving these docks basically bare, and leaving veterans like Tom as kind of the final guardians of this specific coastal heritage. But heritage rarely just vanishes in a vacuum. It usually ends up colliding head-on with the future. That brings us to Section 2, Tradition Meets Modern Science. In this part of the story, a young marine biology grad joins Tom out on his boat. She's there to research sustainable lobster fishing, and the dynamic between them is incredibly stark. On one side, you've got modern science, all that academic, data-driven research she brings to the table. And on the other, generational tradition, decades of Tom's hands-on, gritty experience. The funny thing is, the young biologist actually showed up expecting to teach Tom a thing or two about modern science. But as we see in the text, she gets a pretty massive surprise once they actually get out on the water. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is just the sheer incredible depth of Tom's expertise. The young grad doesn't just find some stubborn old fisherman. She stumbles into an absolute masterclass in practical oceanography. Tom has this deeply ingrained, almost intuitive grasp of the ocean's mechanics. He reads the subtle shifts in the tides. He feels the invisible pull of the currents. He anticipates complex weather patterns, and he knows exactly how marine life behaves. You definitely don't learn this stuff in a lecture hall. This is knowledge earned through thousands upon thousands of days freezing out on the Atlantic. And from that realization comes this powerful, honestly awe-inspiring synergy between the two of them. The source points out that, together, they figure out that tradition and science can protect the ocean way better together than either one could on its own. By blending her modern scientific methods with his deep, generational feel for the sea, they start forming a complete picture of coastal sustainability. It's this brilliant merging of two completely different worlds, both working toward the exact same goal. Of course, theory and research are one thing, but surviving the actual ocean? Yeah, entirely different beast. Section 3, Listening to the Sea. Out on the open water, things can go south with terrifying speed. Just look at this sudden Atlantic storm detailed in the text. Literally at the 1-minute mark, the storm just rolls right in, completely blacking out the sky. Just 5 minutes later, conditions are absolutely brutal. Freezing rain is lashing the deck, and by 15 minutes, massive, violent waves are just slamming into the hull. The sheer, raw physical danger they face out there is immense. For the young biologist, it's her first real taste of nature's absolute power. And this is the exact moment where Tom's background becomes invaluable. Under the crushing, chaotic pressure of this storm, Tom doesn't even blink. He leans on 6 straight decades of hard-earned experience to just calmly guide the boat through the chop. He safely navigates them right back to the harbor, and honestly, it is in this intense moment of sheer survival that the biologist looks at him with an entirely newfound, profound respect. Once they're safely tied up, Tom just gives this little smile and drops an unforgettable line. "You don't fight the sea, you learn how to listen." Wow. It perfectly captures the generational wisdom of working in harmony with nature rather than trying to arrogantly conquer it. You are never going to overpower the Atlantic Ocean, right? But if you listen to it, if you understand its currents and its moods the way Tom does, you can find your way through it. As we enter the twilight of Tom's career, we reach Section 4,
passing the compass. Knowing his retirement is finally just around the corner, Tom decides to head out for one last lobster season. And you can really notice the shift in his mindset here. First, every single morning just feels a bit more meaningful to him. Second, every sunrise looks a little more beautiful than the one before it. And third, every trip out onto the water is instantly logged as a cherished memory. He knows the clock is ticking. This all culminates in the harbor community coming together to throw a big celebration for his final day out on the water.
So let's see how this builds into the story's real emotional climax. During this final celebration, Tom performs a deeply symbolic act. He hands the young marine biologist his grandfather's old brass compass. The text describes it so vividly. The metal is literally worn smooth from generations of thumbs rubbing against it. This isn't just some cool antique to put on a shelf. This is the physical passing of a legacy, the old guard of generational tradition, handing the reins directly into the hands of modern science. As he passes it over, Tom explains what the object really means to him. He says, "This compass never found the fish, it always found the way home." I absolutely love that. It was never about the industry, or the hustle, or the catch. It was always about safety, guidance, and getting back to the people you love. The biologist is deeply moved, naturally, and accepts it, promising to protect both the ocean itself and the fishing traditions that rely on it.
With his legacy secured and safely passed on, Tom's day finally comes to a close. Section 5, the final rhythm. The scene described here is just stunning. The sun is sinking into the Atlantic, and the Northern Star pulls back into the docks for the very last time. Tom ties off the boat, looking out over this quiet water glowing brilliant orange beneath the evening sky. It is just this moment of profound, absolute peace. After decades of fighting freezing storms and hauling heavy traps, Tom is finally embracing the sea's quiet final rhythm.
Looking out across that glowing water, he shares his ultimate realization about his life's work. He says so softly, "People think I caught lobsters, but all my life, I learned that the greatest treasure the sea ever gave me was the privilege of coming home." Man, that just brilliantly ties together all the themes we've been talking about. The lobsters, the boats, the changing industry. None of that was the actual treasure. The true treasure was the journey itself, and that guaranteed, rhythmic return back to the safety of the harbor. The narrative closes out with this lingering, beautiful mental picture. The camera slowly rises up above the rocky Maine coastline. Down below, the lobster boat rocks gently against the dock in the falling darkness. In the distance, the lighthouse starts to shine, and the waves, they just continue their timeless rhythm. Tom's career is over, the harbor has permanently changed, but the sea's quiet final rhythm carries on, totally indifferent and eternal, just passing from one generation to the very next. Which leaves us with a final thought to mull over. We've seen Tom's journey and how he successfully passed his compass to the next generation. So I have to ask you, what is your ultimate way home? And what kind of legacy are you navigating toward right now? As you reflect on the sea's quiet final rhythm and the shifting tides of your own life, I really hope this explainer has given you some valuable perspective today. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I'll catch you next time.